It's this narrative of if I'm good, then good things will happen to me. And that sets us up for a world of hurt in every area of our lives until you realize I don't have control over other people. That's a hard lesson to learn in life.
Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Lisa Sonni. And today I am just beyond excited to have our guest, Aisha Grevenberg, who is a therapist based in Nevada, for those that are looking for her after you hear this incredible episode. And I want to talk about this idea that if we just loved him enough, right, then things would be better, then he would heal. And I think that with that comes a lot of assumption that his trauma is what's causing him to act this way, or something's going on with him, or it's you. But there's this feeling of like, I loved him enough. So Aisha, why don't you introduce yourself? Let the audience know who you are.
Those tell us about yourself. I love those questions.
Yeah.
I have been in mental health literally my entire life. It's all I've ever done. I've never done anything different. And I graduated, you ready for this? 2002. So since 2002, I've been doing mental health, and I've worked with different populations. So that's helped me really have a holistic view because I haven't only worked with one group of people. So I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. And to have that lived experience while I'm actually working in mental health, not only was I working in mental health, I was on television talking about domestic violence, going home, dealing with domestic violence. And so there was a duality to my experience that I think is pretty unique and gives me a lot to sort of talk about because I had to heal as I was working. So I was working and healing at the same time. And there was a lot that went into that. And now I do solely private practice. My practice is virtual. I work with people all over the world, primarily with women all over the world who are trying to come to terms with these type of relationships. So I have my experience and then their experience, and we're learning and growing together. So it's definitely something I enjoy talking about.
Yeah. Tell me that, what you're describing, this talking on TV and talking about domestic violence, did you not know that that was your situation? Did you sort of separate yourself from that?
I didn't want to admit that it was happening to me. And now when I work with women who were similar to me, professional, top of their career, making money, the idea that I'm a victim was not something I could wrap my mind around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
same.
I told myself that each episode was isolated, that it wasn't domestic violence because it happened last year and nothing happened since then. Do you know what I mean? So I could rationalize that this was happening to other women that had to live in shelters, women that had to run for their lives. Even though that was my story when I tried to leave, in that moment, I was living a Facebook life. And I just couldn't accept that this was happening to me.
Yeah. So I wasn't in the field of domestic violence or mental health, but I also was playing the role, and I would, do my job, and I was known to be assertive, to say the least, in my work. And then I would go home and I'm getting abused. I swear, people that knew me back then would be like, no way, they would never guess that.
Mm-hmm.
What I was trying to do, and in this sort of form of denial that you're even talking about, that's not me because it was this one incident. It was last year. It was for this reason. Mm-hmm. I was so convinced that it was not that bad. The word abuse did not even come into my brain until I was out 6-7 months. When I was in it, not once, I'd never even considered that it was abuse. It was just mean or not nice or a mood or whatever. I spent the whole entire time trying to figure him out, understand him, fix him. And the whole time I'm really just making excuses.
Exactly. I was the exact same way. And the challenge for me, and I think for a lot of women, is I thought if I explained things to him calmly, if I used my therapy voice, if I helped him to understand that his behavior was hurting me, I thought that he would connect the two and, I don't want to hurt the person I love, so I'm going to stop doing this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I turned into a lawyer, all these exhibits this, and I'm not doing that. And you accuse me of this, and that's not happening. And here's my phone, check my phone. I'm not doing, you know what I mean? All of these ways that I was trying to present evidence to him to get him to see that his behavior was harmful. and we had this amazing life if he would just stop. Do you know what I mean? Like, how is this hard? Like, you learned in kindergarten, keep your hands to yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so when I work with women now and they tell me, well, I've explained to him, I told him, I talked to his mom, I talked to his brother. It's this effort of communication, thinking that this is a communication issue, right? We're having a communication barrier. He doesn't understand me. He heard you, right?
Heard you. Yeah.
He
But I
heard
think
clear.
it's like the biggest lie we tell ourselves now, that he just doesn't understand. And I'm always like, babe, listen, what if he understands and he doesn't care? Like, just sit with that for a second. What if that's what's really going on? That he absolutely understands. He sees tears coming out of your eyeballs. He hears the words you're saying. We're all speaking the same language. And that fake, I don't get it, I don't understand why you're so mad. That keeps you, because you keep trying to explain and to fix. But where does that come from? That's where I want to use that, put on your therapy hat and tell me, where did we learn that we have to heal someone else?
I think a lot of it is misunderstanding what love is. I think that's number one. And I think it's very hard for women to understand that a person can not love you and harm you, because then we have to go back to our primary relationships. And I'm basically telling a woman, your mom didn't love you. How is that supposed to sit with someone? Or your father didn't love you. He left. He didn't love you. So this idea of how can someone say they love me and hurt me at the same time, now we're getting a little bit more complicated and vulnerable, because the question is, well, did my parents love me? Did my siblings love me? Do my friends love me? And it's very hard for us to understand that love and abuse do not coexist. And so to accept that, now that is where the difficulty is, because now I have to go all the way back and unpack. I don't know what love is. Have you ever truly been loved? That's
that's deep.
That's deep. Right? It's very deep. And then as girls, and there are all types of people in this type of situation, but the idea is, if I can make you proud of me, if I can make you see that I'm a good girl, if I can make you see that, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to high school, all these things of trying to be perfect to get our parents to show us the type of attention and love that we needed. When that is there, then that's how we show up in every relationship. We try to perform to get love. It's a performance, because the belief is the way I am is not enough. The way I show up isn't enough. Like, just me being me on Tuesday, no makeup, you know what I mean? Sweatshirt, that part of me isn't worthy of love. I have to be this professional. I have to explain things perfect for you just to love me and respect me. So one, we don't know what love is. That's number one. We don't know what love is. And it's hard. Then I think there is this desire to make people feel something. We want to be able to control how people feel. We want to be able to control how people see us. And so a lot of it is that we want people to have this impression of us. And so we think we can make that happen, when in all honesty, it's a person's choice how they feel about you. It really is. But every message that we receive is that if we present ourselves a certain way, then you're going to have a certain life, right? Period. And the messaging that I receive as Gen X, I always talk about this, is if you're thin, if you don't have no mouth, especially as a Black woman, if you ain't got an attitude and you ain't doing all this, and period, if you're not talking like that, if you're respectful, you cover your body, then you are going to have a certain life. And the narrative is that you will be rewarded for being demure. You will be rewarded for not having multiple partners. There's a reward for that. And so you have to chase this carrot, this patriarchal carrot that says if you perform, the reward is a good man, he's going to have money, and he's going to take care of you. That's the narrative.
Provider, protector, which, just as an aside, I think that whole concept, the patriarchy in general, but men do what now? Protect? I don't think so. That has not been my experience. And
mine either.
I'm a millennial. I think I'm an elder millennial, in fact, but I was also raised to feel like if you are good, if you perform, if you do the right thing, be ladylike, I'm the daughter of a British woman, right? So be ladylike and be the right thing and look a certain way and be demure, all that. And yet, what was the reward, right? In a way, it was almost like be compliant, be obedient. Because I also was raised more so with my father in an authoritarian style. So compliance really mattered. But what did that do for me as an adult? It meant I knew how to perform. And in fact, my sister is sort of like the naughty one and I was the good one. And I think I identified with that unknowingly. Like I needed to be that role. So compliance was really important to me because I would watch my sister get in trouble for being non-compliant.
And a lot of that goes into the way we experience ourselves. And it's this narrative of if I'm good, then good things will happen to me. And that sets us up for a world of hurt in every area of our lives, not just in relationships, but at work, in friendships, in every area of our life. We are vulnerable because we believe we can control the outcome if we control our behavior. And that's the message that we're given until you realize I don't have control over other people. They have a right to feel how they want to feel and think how they want to think. And I can't influence that. I really can't influence that. But it doesn't register until you hit that wall several times to understand I cannot control another person. That's a hard lesson to learn in life.
I learned it the hard way, as many of us did. And that, like, I was so desperate. And I feel like, he would say to me a lot, like, you're trying to change me. And I was so perplexed by that. Like, what do you mean I'm trying to change you? And in hindsight, now I'm looking at it going, you know what? I was, but I didn't know at the time because what I thought I was doing was trying to get back the version of him that I met, that I fell in love with. That version of him wasn't real. And it was almost his way of telling me, like, that dude wasn't even in existence. You're trying to change me. And I didn't think that I was, but I was.
And in my mind, I'm not trying to change you because your behavior is so inappropriate and so egregious that I'm asking you to stop. That's not change. That's stop hurting me, right? And my ex would say the same thing. Like, this is who I am and this is how I talk. When I get upset, I yell. And I'm like, you're yelling at me. No, I'm yelling because that's just how I am and that's how I talk. No, you're yelling at me. Do you know what I mean? And so it fed that narrative that I'm not being abused because he's not yelling at me. So he's just yelling. It was a way to undo his behavior and remove me as the victim from what was happening. And that's the language of our, even the linguistics of how we speak. It's teenage girls got pregnant. How? Who got them pregnant?
Who got them pregnant? Yeah. And why is it usually an older guy?
Right. We got 15 teenage moms here, teenage girls here, they got pregnant. So the abuser is invisible. And in this interpersonal dynamic, his abuse was invisible because he's not yelling. This is just how he is.
This is just how he is. Mine would say this is just how men are so often to me. Like men just yell. That's how men express themselves. And I wish that I'd had the sort of sarcasm back then to be like, not all men, because I loved how men are not all men when it's appropriate or convenient, I should say. And then sometimes they're not. But it was like, stop trying to control how I talk. Oh, so now I'm not even allowed to be mad. Like, actually, you're allowed to be mad and you're not allowed to scream at me. And those two things can coexist. But it was like, I am trying to change him. So it sort of like metaphorically beat me down into just accepting him for who he was. He's a person who abuses me and yells. And that's just my life now. It was sort of, I don't know, tolerable misery. But I still kept trying to change him. And I'm telling you, it's like that emotional bait and switch. He didn't want help. He wanted control.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. And I used to call my abusive ex, an angry bird. So it's like I made fun of it, and I would say to him, well, I'm not going to leave you. You yell at me. I said this, I'm not going to leave you. You're just an angry bird. And then he would get angry at that. Like, don't call me that. Don't call me that. Like, I'm just expressing myself. You don't want me to express myself. And there was no pleasing this person. And someone who's abusive has no desire to be anything but abusive. And why would they? It gets them exactly what they want. And so the level of manipulation that I experience and that I see women experience, and this false hope, this pathological hope that this is going to get better, insane hope, right? It's going to get better. It's going to get better. Even though you have the proof in front of you that it's getting worse. But if it's getting worse, then that means this fantasy that you live in, we have to tarnish that. And then what does that do for you, for your identity, for your sense of self? When you spend all this money on this wedding, when you have all these pictures on Instagram, when you have to admit that this isn't what I'm portraying it to be. Now you have to tell the truth to yourself. And that's very difficult.
Yeah. And all the stuff that comes with that. I always feel like the truth of he's not going to change and the truth of you giving up on trying to love him enough and be compliant enough and more supportive, less combative, blah, blah, blah. It's so hard. In that whole effort, you end up having to sort of sit in a place of going, okay, so I'm going to stop all of this. But what does that mean now? I have to tell people that I made a mistake. I have to tell people that this isn't the right relationship for me, that I shouldn't be here, that I'm being abused. Bad.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of shame. And I can honestly say that a lot of people aren't kind. They want to ask you, well, how? How did this happen? How did you not see the signs? Basically, this is your fault.
Yeah. You
And
didn't know. You picked
right,
him.
right. Like, how did you not know? And after the first time, why did you stay? Like, what? Help me understand. Like, that's stupid. That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. You didn't need him financially. So why would you allow that? These are things people said to me, to my face. And, I'm from New Jersey. Now I'm ready to fight. Now I'm ready to curse you out because you don't care about my well being. And I'm being vulnerable and sharing what happened to me. And you want to interrogate me.
Yeah.
You're not
Even,
saying anything to him.
even the ones that say, like, okay, no, I get it. He's bad. This is abuse. Like, this is his fault. But still, why did you stay? It's like, no,
Yeah.
skip that part of the conversation and stick with that one part. Instead of why did she stay, how did he make it so hard for her to leave? Why
Right.
did he do that? What were the circumstances that made it so
Right.
hard? And the contrast is the hard part. Because don't you also see this so often that on the flip side, you see, well, how come, you're being so hard on him? Are you sure it's that bad? I mean, I don't have that experience with him, so maybe it's you.
Yeah.
People will also say, like, it's just one fight, marriage is hard, relationships are hard, it takes two. And so you're simultaneously trying to be the good woman that you were raised and conditioned to be, and be forgiving and be not too hard on him and not ask for too much, because God forbid a woman asks for too much, but also you picked him and you stayed.
Like, no returns, basically.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do not want to accept that abusive people have been abusive most of their life. And when they do kind things for other people, they are creating alibis. And so they're often extremely generous. They're often very funny. They're often very kind. These are the people that will walk an old lady across the street. Do you know what I mean? Mow your lawn. They'll do anything. They're so kind because they're planning that alibi so that someone says something about them. You have 15 people saying, he's the nicest guy I ever met. What are you talking about? You're lying. He'll give me money. He'll do this. And so we are just now starting to realize the pathology of abuse and the compassionate authority figures that we see among us, the police officers, the rate of domestic violence with them, firefighters, all these people that we see as heroes. And the way that the abuse happens in their family is an open secret. It's an open secret, but we turn a blind eye to it. And one of the things that I've started to notice in my practice is I work with a lot of women from different cultural backgrounds. And there's a lot of domestic violence that is not reported, because what happens is when there's an incident, the woman will call her family. She's not calling the police. She's going to call her family, especially if there's a language issue, especially if there's immigration status, especially now. So she'll call her family, and her family will come over and tell her to stay, to give him a chance. The uncle or the father will go and talk to him, and y'all have to work it out. That is what's happening in different communities. So we don't have accurate data because no one is involved. It's worse than we realize, because this is what happens. The family come over and they talk it out. They never call the police, ever.
I didn't.
Ever.
I didn't. I picked up the phone to call the police, and I called his mother.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely floored and was like, I can't deal with this. Talk to his dad, hands the phone to dad, who basically says, like, okay, I'll talk to him. Keep this in the family. I'll deal with it. I promise. And his deal with it was to essentially tell him not to do it, right? As if that's all he needed, was to be told. Did you know that hitting your partner is not a good idea? Which is ridiculous, but ultimately they protected him. And I was shocked, which in hindsight, like, come on, girl. I can't believe I was shocked. I thought his family would help me. That's insane. But we hope. I think I had hoped so much that they could all see that it was just his trauma and he just needed more love and more support and more, like, I wasn't trying to get him in trouble. I just wanted him to be better. I am the epitome, like I'm the poster child for, if I just loved him enough, then it will be better. Because he was constantly explaining to me how I was missing the mark. I needed to be more supportive. I needed to do more, be less combative, more compliant. And he wasn't using these words. I think that might have been more of a red flag, but it was just, can't you be more, why do you always want to argue? you hold on to things and just constantly bulldoze me into
Yeah.
accepting him. And no matter how hard I tried to love him, the reason it was never enough was because love does not make someone not be abusive. Because, shocker, abuse is a choice. That shocked me. I truly thought it was like a compulsion or something.
I remember growing up with the idea of a woman can provoke a man to behave a certain way. And that if you talk to a man and you're disrespectful to a man, then he can't handle it. And he just explodes, right? Because you're disrespecting him. And there's this episode in the film, I was in the theater watching it, where the character is so just tearing this man apart, just like, my son is not your son. And he smacks her and the crowd cheers. He smacks her in this movie, backhands her, smacks her as hard as possible. And people are clapping because she deserved it, because she was antagonizing him. She was provoking him. And the whole time she was berating him, and then you could see him crumbling, and then he just exploded. And so that is this idea that I grew up with, that you women are provoking men. What are you saying to him? What are you doing to him that's making him act that way? Because he's only responding to you. And so there was no accountability for men, no accountability whatsoever. And that sort of men can't control themselves, that's ubiquitous. That's our culture. Like in churches, and I always say this, if you're sitting in the front row in a church, they make you cover your knees. They put a cloth over your lap and make you cover your knees. And it's called like a prayer cloth. They'll come and you have to put that over your knees if you're sitting in the front of the church, because you could distract the pastor with showing too much skin.
Wild. This whole concept, though, that men can't control themselves, which again, like not all men, right? But this idea that men have no choice but to respond with violence, it's just in their nature. I mean, that is just proven to be completely false, but it's in the culture. And I agree. It was like, what do you expect? That's what happened. And in fact, my most violent assault was I denied him spicy time. I said no. And I mean, I had a damn good reason to say no that particular night, in my opinion. But the truth is, you don't need any reason, I realized. But my reason was he was completely hammered. I was furious because I'd been doing everything that day. He did nothing except get drunk. So I was pissed off. And then I say no, and he threw me up a staircase, dragged me into the kitchen. I should say, trigger warning, dragged me into the kitchen and smashed my head in. And so many people, mostly men, right? Well, what did you expect? Well, how many times had you said no? Like there's trying to give an excuse or trying to create some context that would make that okay. Or just men don't do that for no reason. So what happened first?
Right.
Men do that for no reason. And certainly what would a valid reason be? But to them, like saying no to spicy time, disrespect, which disrespect could just be, not agreeing with him. I think men's version of disrespect, it's shockingly broad, crazy.
And it changes all the time. And I think it's so harmful to men to insist that they can't control themselves. That is dehumanizing, and it's invalidating, because they absolutely can. They are capable of all kinds they're human. They're just like us. So if we can control ourselves, they can control themselves. I think that's something that men should balk against, that they should push against, because they're being reduced to animals. They're being reduced to being totally incapable of controlling any impulse whatsoever. And words out of someone's mouth that you haven't harmed them. You're no physical threat to them whatsoever. But words out of your mouth can provoke them to such rage that they feel entitled to harm you. This is unacceptable. But when you put it in a different context, when you take a woman out of it, and when you say to a man, well, if a cop does that, if a cop loses his cool and attacks someone, oh, absolutely, they understand it in that circumstance, because they see two men and they respect two men. And so the idea is that if this man loses his cool, then it's his responsibility to know how to calm himself down and not harm someone who's no physical threat to him. So you can see it in that dynamic, but interpersonally, you want to interrogate me. You want to interrogate the woman. And so this is the narrative. They are incapable of controlling themselves unless there's another man, because as a woman, they're vulnerable to our criticism. They're so vulnerable. And another man said to me that a male ego is as fragile as an eggshell. And the words out of our mouth shatter them. Just the words shatter them. They can't
fix that. I mean, it's interesting. I think ironically, they need a therapist, but it's interesting how they turn their partner into a therapist. And kind of no joke intended that you are actually a therapist, but most of us are not. And even if you are your therapist, not his therapist, right? But
Yes. Yes.
we want to support him. And so we become like the mother, which is a horrible role to be in. And we become the therapist, the coach, the cheerleader. We're everything. We're the fixer, the caretaker, the martyr, even. We're everything to this person. And we erase ourselves while we're trying to love this person. But that's kind of how you almost don't even notice, right? Because you're mirroring him and you lose yourself. But the more you mirror him, the more you don't know that you're erasing yourself.
Right. You start to lose your identity. And so much of language is so important. And as women, we are taught, especially in long term relationships and marriage, that you need a reason to leave. If this person says that they're working on it, then you don't have a reason to leave. If they have harmed you, but they're going to therapy, which therapy is not appropriate for violence, for abusive women is totally inappropriate. Individual therapy is inappropriate. Anger management doesn't work. Like these are all facts, indisputable facts. But if he's willing to do those things, then you need to be willing to stay because you have to give him a chance. And so this idea of I'm walking away from a man who is trying, how are you doing that? You haven't even given it a chance. But in the minds of men and abusive men, there's never enough chances. As long as he's willing to work on it, you should be willing to stay. And so we get caught in this, am I going to leave now? He's working on it. It hasn't happened in 3 months. So why am I leaving? I'm going to basically wait until it happens again and the cycle starts all over again. And so women are put in these impossible situations. When do you leave? When can you leave? And even when there isn't a barrier, there's not a financial barrier. The psychological barrier is much more intense than a financial barrier. You can have all the money in the world. The door could be wide open, but someone walking out of that, that's a different dynamic when we're talking about the psychological prison these relationships keep you trapped in.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're so attached to that fantasy of they're going to change, they want to change. Although I always kind of say, my abuser really wasn't one to kind of promise change. He would be more like, you're being ridiculous. It was a lot more, stop it. This isn't even bad. It's just who I am, right? But I know that promise of change or things will get better. He did future fake in that way. Like when the business gets going, when I retire, it was always some future thing where things would be easier or he wouldn't be so stressed out. And it's like that moment's not going to come. You're going to wait forever.
But what I found, is, especially with a lot of the women I work with, is the willingness to change ourselves. And that goes back to the idea that if I'm different, he's going to be different. So if I do things differently, I'm going to make sure I cook. I'm going to try to talk to him kindly. I'm not going to bring things up when he just comes home from work because he's exhausted. I'm going to wait. I'm going to do this. When his friends are over, I'm going to make chicken wings, whatever, right? But I'm going to tie myself into knots to be what I think he wants me to be so that his behavior will change. I'm just going to do what he wants so that he's nice, he's kind. We learn that in childhood. We learn how to read people's moods in childhood and how to adjust our behavior to get a different reaction from our parents and our caregivers. And so this type of change of me is what keeps us stuck. Because when do you stop trying to change yourself? When do you stop trying to work on yourself? Well, it's my attitude. It's the way I'm showing up. I'm not taking care of him. When you stop trying to change him and change yourself, that's when you can leave and stay gone.
It's a pivotal moment. And honestly, I mean, I want to even ask you like what moment you had that was the moment where you were like, I can't do this anymore. I need to leave this in your own personal relationship. When was that moment for you?
So initially for me, I had set this boundary. I said to him, I'm not this person. Like I don't live this life. I'm not going to be in a relationship where I'm being harmed. I'm not going to do that. And he said, so you think you're better than other people? That's your problem. You think you're better than other people. You're bougie. And that's a vulnerability, right? Because I am bougie. Like I was ashamed of it then, honey. I'm not ashamed of it now.
You own that now. Yeah.
I own it now. But I was so ashamed and I didn't want that. You know what I mean? And that made me feel like, okay, I am bougie. Like, let me pull it together. But he had this big explosion. I'm on TV. This is my big moment. I'm on TV with Ricky Smiley's comic. And I'm big moment. We're laughing. We're enjoying ourselves. I mean, it's amazing for my career. This is the launch of me being on TV. So after that show, he starts the biggest fight you couldn't imagine. I'm on cloud nine and I'm thinking I could be on a national TV. Like, this is just amazing for me. And I'm locally on TV here in Vegas and people are writing in. They love my vibe. They love my clothes. Who does her? I'm like, yes, I love it, love it. And he started the biggest fight that night. And he was so abusive and degrading. And the next time I was on TV, threw my makeup against the wall and I'm trying to rush to get on the set. And he tried to sabotage everything. And I said in that moment, this man is my biggest enemy. He does not want me to succeed. He starts arguments in the morning before I go on live television. Like, how is this appropriate? And the violence and a trigger warning, just the throwing and threw me against the wall. And I said, you know what? I hit the floor and I said, I'm done. I'm done. No one is going to throw me against the wall, slam my head against the wall, throw me on the floor. I'm not living like this. This is over. And that was the moment. And I wish it didn't take that. I wish it didn't have to get to that. I wish the sabotaging my career was enough. I wish that was enough. But in my mind, I could work through it, right? I could deal with this. But that was entirely too much. It was entirely too much. And the part about that is that he said, I didn't hit you in the face. You can still go on TV. I didn't hit you in the face. Can you imagine that? You don't have any marks on your face. You can still work. You can still do all these things. I didn't do anything.
Sounds like you should have said thank you.
Right.
Sounds like that's what he expected, right? Oh, you're so nice. Thank you. Wow.
Right. You could still go and perform. You could still be this on TV and do all these things because you were not hit in the face. And that sickness, I said, absolutely not. You are fundamentally dead to me. Dead. And everyone that knows you, dead. But that's what it took. Just seeing that brazen, I didn't hit you in the face.
Yeah.
That's what it took.
Man, they really say some wild things sometimes. I think, mine did many of the things that you're describing, and that was not enough for me somehow. I had to get up to go to work the next day, and I just you just put your suit on and off you go.
Right.
For me, it was a moment that we were already separated and completely separated at that point. He was still asking me to get back with him, but we were apart. We were not an official couple. And he screamed at me on the phone. I remember it was December 1st, 6:00 p.m. on the nose. And he said to me, I left you for a prostitute. Do you understand how bad you have to be for me to leave you for a prostitute? A literal disgusting prostitute. I would rather be with her than with you. And I was like, and we're done. Yeah. It was actually two parts. Obviously, I was offended at the way he was speaking to me. But honestly, I was offended for her. Because yes, that is her career choice. Yes, that was. But my God, the way that you're being so disparaging about this new person who's allegedly so much better than me, but look how you talk about her. It was like, ooh, look how you feel about women. You're never going to change. This is so much more deeply rooted than I could have ever realized.
Exactly. And now when I see signs of manipulation, when I see that, I am able to nip it in the bud. And I'm 4B now. I don't date anyone. And, God himself, all the disciples have to come right here in this office and bring the man with him for me to even consider it. Okay. But before, I picked up on all these little subtle ways that people tell you how they feel about women. And another thing is Pride Month, men who are homophobic also hate women. And so being able to see that a homophobic man is also a misogynistic man and also therefore prone to abuse. This is a personality profile. And so when you see that, then that is your indication that you are not safe. You're not safe. So any homophobic man is unsafe, period. And we have to understand that this energy, this harm, this sort of egregious attitude and sort of, I don't want gay people around me, that he's talking about women too. He's talking about women too. And so we have to learn these signs of abuse. And once you recognize it, turn and run in the other direction, screaming for dear life, as fast as you can. I don't care if you get up from a restaurant and just run out the restaurant. If people knew why you were running, they would cheer you on. Everybody be clapping for you because it doesn't change. It only gets worse and you are in danger. You're in danger. Any man that posts anything disparaging this month, get rid of him, dump him, block him. It doesn't get better. Period. Period.
I wish everybody knew that it doesn't get better. No matter how much you love him, no matter how much you fit into the mold, contort yourself to make it work and be what he wants, it's never enough, because I think the point is to make you feel like you're not enough. You could do the exact thing that he wants you to do and it will never be enough. So the trick really is he doesn't change. He's not going to change. You can change. Change how you see yourself, change how you love yourself, change your beliefs about love. Like you said, I don't think we know what love is. And I don't think we know what self-love is, which I know is a whole huge topic in and of itself. But I always tell people, like, it's not bubble baths and manicures. That's some level of self-care, but it's considering yourself. It's thinking about yourself. You say you respect yourself. I did. I respected myself.
I did too.
And then I went home and got abused. Make that make sense.
Right. I think that was the shame of it, because I struggle, and so many women that are very high performing, we are so vulnerable. I don't think we realize that we are targets. I didn't realize that we are targets for these type of men, because they feel better when they can tear us down, and they feel so empowered to have us beneath them. And the desire is to control you and humiliate you. And when you realize that you are a target, when you're taking care of yourself, when you're working, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're independent, you're a target. You are a target, and we have to understand that. But we also have to understand that self-love means that the most vulnerable part of me is also worthy of love. So the fact that I'm bougie, I'm worthy of love. Now, period. I'm worthy of love. That's nothing to be ashamed of. And for women to understand that you don't have to be perfect for someone to love you. That's not real. That doesn't exist. You are born worthy. You don't have to earn love. You don't have to earn it. You are amazing. You are wonderful. You have dark parts of your personality. You might have a stank attitude. You might have all these things. You're still worthy of love. You're still worthy of love. You might have 50 pounds you have to lose. You're still worthy of love. You and all them 50 pounds, 50, still worthy of love. But we've been taught that love is conditional. Love is not conditional. You have to realize that you're worthy of love and respect no matter what you did, period.
I wish more people knew that. I wish more women knew that, because I think it's harder. I have this belief. I think it's way harder for women to learn, because men are not raised and conditioned in the same kind of world that it has to be earned the way we are. But we need to know that no matter how much you love this man, no matter what you do, how much you put in, he will take from you and you will be empty in the end. So you need to really focus on yourself.
You will be sick. It's not just you'll be empty, you will be sick. And the amount of effort, the labor, the work to get someone to see you, to get someone to love you, that really drains you and makes you physically ill, makes you physically sick. And so this is a public health problem, domestic violence is. The numbers are so much smaller than what they actually are. But women are suffering. Children are suffering because children are seeing this and hearing this. And so when you think about love and you realize that if I truly, truly love myself, then that means I have to protect myself. If I truly value my life, that means I have to protect my mental health. That means that I cannot allow someone to harm me, and I have to get help. There are people that want to help me. There are people that wake up every morning with the desire to help women like me, and I know that they're there. And people that really are in this work and do this, the money doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, people want to help you. They want to listen. They want to hold space. There's goodness there if we allow ourselves to receive it and let go of the shame of being abused. There's nothing to be ashamed about.
The shame belongs to them, not to us.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming on Real Talk with Lisa Sonni to have this, really powerful conversation, because I know so many women need to hear that message that there's no amount of love that's going to change him. He just has to make a choice and he needs help, and that's not your job. Period. The end, right?
Period. It has nothing to do with you. Nothing. I just wish women accepted that and accepted their worth and their beauty, and that love, you don't have to perform for it.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.